And we're now recording.
So my name is Michael Morris. I'm the Transportation Director here at the Council of Governments. We're really excited so many people would come out and listen to some preliminary findings. Before we get into it, Councilman, I'd like to turn it over to you and see what introductory comments you have as we kick off this town hall meeting. You may be muted, Councilman. Travis, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, Michael, I can hear you. Let me,
I think we'll go ahead and proceed. We'll let the councilman interject whenever the councilman wishes to interject. I don't know if he has technology problems or has been called away.
I'm here now. Sorry. Yeah, I was having technology problems.
Okay, Councilman, we turn it over to you to kick us off today, sir.
Thank you very much, Michael. Welcome, everybody. This is Councilmember Omar Narvaez. As we've been discussing over the last several months about the Bachman Lake area plan that we'll be studying, the study that's being done so that we can get better connectivity and better things to happen in the district. Thank you to the COG for sponsoring us and providing the dollars that we needed in order to make this study happen. And so I look forward to seeing the plan study that's going to be presented to us. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it back over to Michael Morris with the COG.
Thank you, sir. And Councilman, thank you for the opportunity that you and State Representative and the initial neighborhood had in giving us this opportunity. So we hopefully won't let you down. We're about 10 months into that original kickoff meeting. I think we're making great progress. You are going to see a lot of recommendations today on a whole host of items in all 10 of our emphasis areas. We have been working hard. We have used almost every team in our department. So as we continue to explore the resolution, you're going to see some pretty sophisticated roadway improvements as part of this process. And some of them are not necessarily in your neighborhood. We have discovered you're taking on a lot of regional traffic. That's the result of deficiencies in the regional network that aren't necessarily close to you. And we're going to show that to you. So if you go to the next slide, a little bit about who we are, just so your audience understands that. All the presenters today are council of governments employees. You're going to see our responsibility both as a council of government employee and as a staff to the Regional Transportation Council. Most of us are paid in federal funds, and we have federal responsibilities to develop systematic review of transportation, safety, equity, air quality, transportation air quality issues within the region. You're going to see all of those items in the presentation today. You have the mayor select 6 members to our Regional Transportation Council. He is elected to have 4 of them elected, 2 are citizens. And then of course you have 2 representatives from Dallas County government. Judge Jenkins is on the Regional Transportation Council, and our chair is Chair Daniels, Commissioner Daniels from Dallas County is our current chair. Our presentation is about 35 minutes. We're going to cover a lot of ground fast. Travis will make these slides available to you, so you have all of them and the recorded. Remember, this is a recorded meeting. So those that cannot attend have the benefit of both the slides and the recorded message. This is the beginning really of a conversation, not the end of a conversation, as you're seeing a lot of results probably for the first time. We have brought in a lot of computer simulations. As we got into the middle of this, we didn't know where it would take us. So we have spent a lot of time on our roadway team. I've spent a lot of time with the roadway team finding deficiencies in the regional network. We have not presented these results to TxDOT. We wanted to come here first So it's always, do you get text dots, feedback of which they may or may not be happy with our recommendations. I didn't want to be influenced by text dots, so you're seeing our recommendations directly. And we have not moved out with any conversations with elected officials in Dallas on this. The councilman is seeing this for the first time. And with regard to the aviation recommendations, we have not made any presentations to the public or to elected officials. Our next step would go to Majid in the Assistant City Manager's office to find out where he wishes to go or not with regard to our recommendations on the aviation side. So you're seeing all of this first. If you go back to our October initial meeting on the next slide, we had laid out a lot of objectives that we anticipated. The good news is you've reaffirmed them, and you've reaffirmed them in a lot of very good detail to help us. But you've identified the safety concerns that I thought you would identify, not just on Northwest Highway, but in other areas. The importance of bicycle pedestrian improvements, you're going to see a lot of that today. The importance of your great access to a light rail system. We are going to present information on detailed traffic volumes related to a northern entrance and what the implication, positive and or negative, is to the transportation system. And you're going to see us recommend a 4-lane section on Northwest Highway just north of Bachman Lake. And you're going to see us push down what we think is about 50,000 plus vehicles per day on Northwest Highway, down to 38,000 vehicles per day on Northwest Highway as a result of several things. And we ask you to be patient as you see us actually walk you through the process we went through to uncover these deficiencies in the regional system. So we do have a 4-lane section on the north side, 4-lane section of Northwest Highway on the north side of Bachman Lake. We suspected that we call the spaghetti on the northwest part of the corridor up on Northwest Highway is responsible for your lack of economic development over the last few decades. You're going to see us make recommendations there. I don't want to get out in front of our presenters. I've asked for a recreational opportunity for Bachman Lake. If this is a bad idea, you can blame me. I had Travis and Carla come up with something. They came up with something. But if you don't like this enhancement to Bachman Lake, you need to blame me for this particular idea. I didn't want to have this opportunity of such a beautiful jewel and not see if I couldn't try to make the jewel better. But you'll be the judge of that. We are going to follow a lot of the original structure where we laid out this comprehensive 10 element component. So you'll see this nomenclature to the original 10. If you've come along into this process, we may, Travis, need to go back to the original presentation from October 1st so they can really follow the structure of this emphasis in 10 items. If they were with us in October, then they would be very familiar with that item. In the interest of time, I'm going to stop there, and Travis, send it back to you, sir.
Thank you for that introduction, Michael. You really set up a lot of presentation well. And today we're going to cover a little bit of that background on the 10 that Michael mentioned, as well as talk about where we've been with the project and where we're going. And we're really going to focus on the public engagement opportunity, a summary of the comments we received from an online map exercise that we made available earlier this year. And as Michael mentioned, we're going to talk about roadway improvement ideas related to possible alternative entries for Love Field. And then we're going to hopefully have time for a good conversation and discussions. So to start off with our background, we began this planning project almost a year ago. As Michael mentioned, we had the October meeting where we laid out a lot of our items that we're going to address. Then we began a public engagement process with an online survey that members from the community utilized and gave input on. We did more public engagement through an interactive map and mapping exercise that was available this spring. And as you'll find out this evening, our roadways team has been working on modeling analysis related to possible scenarios related to Love Field. And you'll see that they've been working on this summer that we're here today to present. And so you heard the mention of the 10 focus areas from October. These are those 10. We want to show you today that we are following through on these items, or will follow through soon. And so some of the content from these items will be covered today. We'll try to indicate in various places throughout the presentation which of these items are on which slide. And you'll see a number like this, number 5 for public engagement. That's just a clue there. And if it's not in today's presentation, we will be putting it in on our website in the future or in future presentations to let you know that we are addressing each of these as a project moves on. So this evening, I want to give you a summary of what we heard through the online mapping opportunity that we made available earlier this year. So this was an opportunity for folks to point out specifically locations where improvements were needed or concerns or issues using an online map. We also made a non-internet connection, non-digital map available at the local branch libraries. And you'll see that this was available in the spring, closing on June 14th. And so from that opportunity, we did get over 200 different comments through the mapping tools on transportation issues in the community. And through the online tool, people had the ability to also indicate that they supported something that someone else had commented on. So you see over 200 votes of support for different points there. And we were going to focus really on the items that were very specific to our study area that focused on transportation issues. Of course, we got a lot of comments that were somewhat unrelated to the topics we're focused on and outside of the study area. We'll, of course, share those with the city staff as they can be addressed outside of our study area. But this evening, we're just going to give a summary of what's really in this focus zone of concern. And so most of the comments we received through the online mapping exercise, approximately a third of them, were really focused on bicycle pedestrian topics and the facilities that are there or not there that need to be addressed. And then another third of them were really themed around the need for safety. So if you're a bicyclist or pedestrian, how do you cross these roadways that have fast moving traffic, and safety concerns there were expressed. And of course, less than a third, but also other topics of note, concerns over congestion, over poor roadway condition, paving, and stormwater were also brought up. And so those are included. And so we're going to go into just a few key areas that I think were really the focus of the comment and conversation through the mapping exercise. The first being the Bachman neighborhood, where, as you'll see from our comment counts that are displayed here, and again, I'm not going to go over every single comment, but rather we will make this presentation available online along with a report that has all of the comments available for you to read at your leisure. But the main takeaway here is really an indication of the need for better bicycle pedestrian facilities. And again, a concern over how to safely access them, especially as it comes to the ability to cross roadways where there is a lot of traffic. So those were noted for this area in particular. And then I want to shift over a little ways to the east on Northwest Highway, where you'll know that there was a lot of comments on missing sidewalk especially. And with Northwest Highway having a lot of fast moving traffic, comments also indicated a concern over an ability to safely cross and navigate around that roadway. And keeping with the Northwest Highway theme, another area of focus, moving back over closer to the Bachman neighborhood, number of comments expressing a need for sidewalks in this particular stretch of roadway. And you'll see we've got a red and green layer on that map that shows we have documented, looked at the maps and data along from assistance with the city of Dallas to note where there is and is not sidewalk. And again, familiar theme, safety. How do you cross the roadway? That was expressed. And we've also noted issues over stormwater and roadway condition that have been noted there. And the final specific geography focus area I want to point out is this intersection we're calling northeast of the airport. It's adjacent to Love Field. It's where Lemon Avenue crosses Northwest Highway. It meets Shorecrest, and the Webb Chapel Road bridge over Bachman Lake meets Shorecrest. So we heard a lot in the comments from the mapping exercise about this area, not having pedestrian facilities, not having bicycle facilities, and really being a barrier to moving through this area. And it's also an important roadway intersection and junction that I've circled here in this image to note that we're going to talk about it later. You're going to hear from our roadways team on our item 3. Item 3 is this question of access to left field. And so this is an important location. So keep that in mind. We have noted these comments, and we're going to continue talking about this location later in the presentation. I'd also like to note that our goal is to coordinate with our local government partners, obviously the city of Dallas, Dallas County, TxDOT. And so we received a number of comments on locations that relate to projects that are in some degree of progress with those different agencies. And we're going to take these comments to them and coordinate with them as needed as well. And in one of the final sort of focus areas that we got from this engagement was where are the areas people are interested in connecting and getting to. And so especially from the bicycle pedestrian movements, we've noted those here on this map. And so we're not necessarily finalizing recommendations this evening. We're going to come back to you all and continue to refine recommendations, but we're using this input to help us understand where and what needs to possibly be improved. So that's some of the information we're taking away from this effort. And just to wrap up everything I've said about our mapping engagement effort, I've got here a tally of the different comments for the different areas. I just want to reinforce, we heard major themes that we knew something about going into this from our transportation data and from the prior engagement effort, that there's a need for addressing bicycle pedestrian facilities, and especially the safety related to bicycle pedestrian movements throughout the study area. Major streets have a lot of traffic on them, so that also creates a safety impediment. And how do we really address the ability to cross those streets safely, along with addressing the traffic needs that are present? So I've gone through this pretty quickly. I just wanted to give everyone a quick overview. We are going to provide a full report of comments on our website. If you want to look over them and look at the details, it will be posted at our project website, nctcog.org/Bachman area. And of course, we're going to coordinate with our local government partners on this and look at identifying recommendations that address some of these concerns. So that concludes our sort of summary of the public input there. And again, I know that I went through it very quickly, but these slides will be online for you to review after this meeting. And I want to very quickly switch over to an idea that Michael mentioned earlier in the presentation, is how do we increase recreation access? And so we've got the next couple of slides sort of show an idea of possibly creating something like a recreational island feature in Bachman Lake that would host different amenities. And as Michael indicated, we'd really like your feedback on this. We're going to be sharing a link where you can fill out a form to give feedback, or of course you can provide comments in today's meeting. But essentially, this would be a trail bike ped only connected facility somewhere in the lake like that. And here is a rendering of what it could possibly facilitate or look like. So that's just one idea. Again, Michael said we want to start off the conversation. So please feel free to give us feedback on this in the chat, or we're going to provide a link for comments that is available on our website. And if you have questions, again, we invite you to put those in the chat. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to Jeff Neal with NCTCOG to talk about what's going on the roadway side. Jeff?
Thank you very much, Travis. I appreciate it. And good evening, everybody. I've looked forward to the opportunity to speak with all of you today. And I think one of the things that you'll find, certainly based off of the information that Travis presented to you, is there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the roadway side to better accommodate some of the bicycle pedestrian improvements that were mentioned. A lot of what's happening in the area around Bachman Lake and Northwest Highway is due to activities happening at places just outside of the area. You'll hear me mention the term bookend. So, one of those particular studies is the Northwest Highway study happening east of Inwood over toward the Preston Center area. I wanted to include this slide for you to show that that study is still ongoing, and that over the course of the next year to year and a half, there will be plenty of opportunities for additional public comment and consideration of options that TxDOT might produce over in that area. But this is certainly important along with some of these other studies that you'll see on the next slide, because they really do influence the ability or the capability of traffic coming into this area. And so, when we're talking about wanting to add pedestrian amenities along Northwest Highway, as well as adding potential new access to Love Field, it's important for us to consider what's happening at these bookended projects to understand how we can, as Michael mentioned, reduce traffic on Northwest Highway and be able to add some of the amenities, some of the bicycle pedestrian accommodations that require us to have less traffic and improved safety. Next slide, please. This map, and you've seen this from our previous presentations, highlights some of those additional studies that are happening within and near to this area. We're focusing on the circled area there in orange to improve context sensitivity on Northwest Highway. So you heard me address the TxDOT study on Northwest Highway to the east. We're also dealing with an ongoing TxDOT and NCT COG study for the Harry Hines Boulevard corridor, you can see there in blue, as well as obviously the potential entrance options to Love Field, accommodation of the Love Field Loop Trail, and how all of that is going to be addressed within the area circled there in orange around Bachman Lake and the Bachman Neighborhood. Next slide, please. So Harry Hines, interestingly enough, Harry Hines, the study that's ongoing here is looking at a master plan to help improve context sensitivity within that area, the need to try to reduce traffic, the need to improve walkability and connectability to various land uses. This is obviously still a very important corridor because it provides access to downtown, to Market Center, the UT Southwestern campus. And so how can we make it to where those areas are more accessible while at the same time making that corridor more attractive, less impacted by traffic, trying to look at all the various intersections and interchanges along the corridor to see if improvements to those areas allow for better traffic distribution and better opportunities for increased livability, increased walkability in these areas that are continuing to attract a great deal more people. And you'll notice the northern limit of this study is the intersection with Spur 482 and Northwest Highway, which we want to try to address not only with this study, but with our study. And we'll talk about that here shortly. Next slide, please. And the idea is, as we address all of these studies, the hope is that if we reduce Northwest Highway, because you can see from the middle of the slide where you see the 50K plus, that's the current amount of traffic that's being measured along Northwest Highway in that area, about 50,000, more than 50,000 vehicles a day. So if there are bicycle pedestrian connections that need to be made, if there are safety needs in this area, if there are sidewalks that needed to be added, and we want to provide also this ability to connect potential recreational features at Bachman Lake to neighborhood parks or trail connectivity to other areas throughout this portion of the city of Dallas, it is critical that we find a way to be able to make this possible land bridge connecting the Bachman Lake area to the runway protection zone, as shown in the picture to the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And so if we can reduce Northwest Highway to a value considerably less than 50,000 and provide this land bridge, we think that we might be able to achieve that particular objective. Next slide, please. So this slide here helps to kind of summarize what we're intending to accomplish here. So we're focusing on 3 particular locations. Again, these bookends. So one of them being what we're calling the northeast corner of the airport that Travis had discussed earlier in his slides. We're looking at the Interstate 35E interchange, what's known as the Raceway interchange, to see if we might be able to use that as a means to be able to not only get traffic off of Northwest Highway, but to also provide a more efficient access point to and from Love Field. And then number 3, that's what Michael had referred to as the spaghetti junction, where Loop 12, Spur 482, and Harry Hines meet. And that by doing that, we hope that in the area marked as number 4, shown there in yellow, that's where we would reduce the capacity of Northwest Highway to 4 lanes, and then using Shorecrest as that means of being able to gain access on the north side to Love Field, provides that ability to be able to reach those bookended interchange locations. And that allows us to accomplish our context sensitive features on Northwest Highway. So next slide, please. So focusing on the northeast corner, the idea is, and we kind of set this as our goal, how can we reduce bottlenecks when there are already very closely spaced intersections in this area, and potentially add Love Field access via Shorecrest. So we believe that this interchange, it needs to be a focal point for some major improvements. And we've highlighted some potential options that could help address that. One of them is focusing on the Webb Chapel Bridge, shown there in kind of hatched in blue. Obviously, that bridge is the closest to not only Love Field, but also to Bachman Lake. So that's certainly a good focal point. But it's not the only area here that is experiencing congestion. It's where Marsh and Lemon Avenue connect in an interchange at Northwest Highway. Perhaps that needs to be the area of improvements, so that if high volume traffic is wanting to access Love Field, it's doing so through an area where high traffic loads are already experienced, but then we can find an opportunity to distribute that traffic more efficiently and safely. Maybe that requires us to revise some of the ramps that exist out there, so that maybe Shorecrest can meet up with Lemon Avenue in its own dedicated intersection on the south side of Bachman Lake. Maybe another option is to explore some kind of a consolidated interchange where we can connect Shorecrest directly with Northwest Highway, and we can do so providing some kind of a grade separation at where Marsh and Lemon come together, and ensure that there is a way that we can do that without adding intervening signals. So that's, obviously that would create some complex movements in this area. And of course, as a result of that, we think it's critical that when the Love Field Loop Trail is connected to Bachman Lake, that it does so in a way that makes it grade separated from those movements. So we're recommending that loop trail be built to travel under the Lemon and Webb Chapel bridges as we consider these improvements. Next slide, please. So we'll move now over to the more toward the southwest, looking at the Interstate 35E Raceway interchange. This interchange is unique in that there's ramps right now only to and from the south. And so if you want to go to Love Field from 35E and you're coming from the north, your only choice is to get off at Northwest Highway, which right now is only provided via a ramp coming off after you split to Loop 12. So that's a long distance along Interstate 35E without any kind of accessibility to and from the north. Now, our idea is to try to open up that ability at the Raceway interchange so that there's ramps to and from the south, but then in adding ramps to and from the north, now people have the ability to be able to access Harry Hines and Shorecrest in a way that doesn't involve people getting onto Harry Hines to the north or along Northwest Highway to be able to get over to that northeast corner. We would also want to make sure that that the interchange is aligned in such a way that rather than having such skewed intersections that are unsafe, that are inefficient, we try to make those become more 90-degree angles, more right angles, so that you can increase the distance between the Raceway signal and the Webb Chapel extension signal. And also by doing that, you facilitate the ability that should we want to build some kind of a bicycle pedestrian connection via a trail from Bachman Lake over to the Campion Trail in Irving, it's through this interchange that we can make that happen. So I think there's ability to produce some great mobility improvements for vehicles, certainly, but we want to make sure that we're also thinking about active transportation as we're looking at this interchange. Next slide, please. And of course, Harry Hines, this was built at a time when it was thought that a great deal more traffic, more limited access type traffic was going to be using Northwest Highway. That obviously didn't materialize. And so now this interchange really is overbuilt in terms of its structures, in terms of its surface area, and the fact that because it's overbuilt, it's very difficult for land to be developed around it. It's very difficult for traffic to circulate around this area. And so what we're suggesting is trying to rebuild this interchange with a much more streamlined design and much less surface area so that it doesn't contribute to more runoff that causes some of the flooding issues that are seen in this area. And then with the streamlined design, you're eliminating those areas where you have to have access, or should I say lack of access controls because of ramps. If they're more traditional intersections, then it's possible for development to actually happen right around those intersections. And so we think that a more traditional design is going to be more appropriate for this area and allow for nearby land to be able to develop. And at the same time, we want to ensure that as we're doing that, we're still providing efficient movements where they need to be, certainly along Northwest Highway, but north-south along Harry Hines. And then as traffic continues to develop coming over from Irving, just find a better way to be able to incorporate that traffic within Northwest Highway. But by changing this interchange, we have an opportunity to better meter that traffic. Then with these direct connector ramps at high speed that just bring a whole bunch of traffic into an area that all of a sudden has a whole bunch of signals or a whole bunch of congestion. That isn't good for mobility, and it certainly isn't good for the kind of development that's conducive for more walkability and context-sensitive design. So next slide, please. And so, and the idea is we want to try to accomplish all of that in a way that also allows us to incorporate the level of traffic we anticipate would want to use, get to and from Love Field, to and from the north. And so I'm going to turn at this point over to my colleague, Chris Reed, and he will talk about some of the activities that we've been doing with our travel demand model to kind of get an understanding where some of the preferred routes and issues when it comes to Love Field access are currently being investigated. So Chris, please take it away.
Thank you, Jeff. Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Reed. I'm a principal transportation planner for the North Central Texas Council of Governments, and I'm the manager of the Sudbury Studies and Thoroughfare Planning team. So for the last 2 years or so, my team has been working with Love Field and their consultants on the alternate entry airport Love Field study. And the map you see here provides a general summary of their preliminary recommendations. This is similar to a map that they showed at their public meetings last summer, and we showed this map in October. So what you see here in red is potential spot improvements along Mockingbird. They help functionality potentially on Mockingbird and Cedar Springs, but they don't really address the issues and the need for the levels of congestion and need for better mobility that an alternate entry would provide. The recommendations in green, there were 6 recommendations for alternate entries. We, in the orange lines, we modeled 4 individual alternatives. Lemon, Denton, Northwest Avenue, and Shorecrest. This map and study provided the foundation for the analysis that I'm about to walk you through. Next slide, please. So for this analysis, we quickly focused on Shorecrest. We modeled multiple potential alternative entries as previously shown in the previous study with the airport and their consultants. For the purpose of this analysis, we eliminated the proposed entries connecting to Northwest Highway, Lemon Avenue, and Denton Drive. Basic reasons for that: Northwest Highway, you have a bridge over the lake. It's very disruptive to Northwest Highway itself. It adds way too much congestion. Lemon Avenue, there are right-of-way issues on George Coker, and Lemon Avenue also added to the congestion on Northwest Highway. It was difficult to mitigate for that. And Denton Drive was very cost prohibitive, and I believe the airport themselves have already removed that from contention. One of the things at a technical level that we definitely wanted to focus on was we wanted to ensure that all the models that we ran for this study eliminated cut-through traffic. We wanted to make sure that the model didn't see the roads connecting. We didn't want it to see it as an arterial to go through the airport and not actually be there for airport purposes. This is something that will need to be addressed in later levels of the study, whether it's design or what have you, for how the airport wants to handle traffic going through the airport and accessing the airport. But for our analysis, no trips were allowed to cut through the airport. So our analysis is a progression built on top of the layer before it. Obviously, the first layer that we worked on was simply adding Shorecrest as an entry to the airport. Shorecrest as it is today as 2 lanes. All these maps that you're going to see here soon, I want to remind you, is for year 2045. After that, we were like, well, okay, well then let's expand Shorecrest to 4 lanes. That was the next level. Add to that, let's look at the new interchanges at Stemmons and Harry Hines, the Raceway, and also on the northeast side, the Shorecrest, Lemon, and Webb Chapel intersections. Then on top of that, let's look at the interchange improvement at Northwest Highway, Harry Hines, and Story Lane. We've been referring to it as a spaghetti interchange, and then also reduce Northwest Highway to 4 lanes. So that's the progression that we looked at. Next slide, please. So before I go much further, let me describe what you're seeing here. I know many of you have seen maps like this before. Some of you haven't. It's a very effective way of showing what the model is doing. So just let me take a couple minutes to explain what's going on here. You're seeing a volume difference map, volume comparison map between an alternative that we've run and a baseline, which is our Mobility 2045 network, which does not include a new entry to the airport. So what you see here is anywhere you see the color blue, that's where volumes have increased. Anywhere you see roadways in orange, that's where you see volumes have decreased. So what you're looking at here is for the year 2045, what our model does when we simply build a Shorecrest entry off of 2-lane Shorecrest into the airport. You see the 38,000 trips that were coming in on the southern entry are now split almost 50-50. You get 18,000 trips coming in from the north and 19,000 trips from the south. So you see all the benefit on Mockingbird, the southern entry, Denton, Lemon, stretches of Harry Hines even. So you see the impact of that right away, and those impacts stay in every alternative that we've run. So right away you see the benefit of a new entry. Next slide. So what we see here, and as I go through these slides, I'll ask Travis to toggle back and forth at times. So what we have here is actually, can you go back a slide, Travis? So one thing that we noticed here is when we don't improve Shorecrest and we put the new entry on there, you see the different ways where the trips are now filtering through the network. So you do see volumes go up on stretches of Northwest Highway, pretty much all through the corridor. You see volumes go up on Webb Chapel Extension and Webb Chapel, and you see volumes go up on Marsh Lane. So it's a scattering effect. And so this is where we want to focus on, okay, well, how do we mitigate for this, and how do we streamline what's going on with the interaction with the new entry? Go back to the next slide, Travis. So what you see here is the only difference that we made to the scenarios is we widened Shorecrest to 4 lanes. This is a project that's already been identified in the Dallas County Major Capital Improvement Program. It's already being looked at least at that level. So we wanted to see, okay, well, what happens if we improve Shorecrest, 4 lanes, other amenities? First thing we note is that the impact to the actual entry to the airport, it goes from 18,000 to 19. So it's kind of flipped a little bit. You have to get a little bit more than 50% coming in there now. But Shorecrest itself, what it does provide is it provides parallel and adjacent capacity to other roadways in the region. So you're starting to see the trips coming in and out of the airport streamline instead of scattering all over the area. You actually see north of Bachman Lake, Northwest Highway hold level and start to even drop in areas. You see the trips going out to the northwest to get to the freeway system, and you do see trips going up to on the northeast and going up to Marsh. Next slide. So what you see here, and if you can toggle back and forth, can you toggle back, Travis? So again, focus on the Raceway interchange at Harry Hines. The two differences to the next run is we reconfigured, we made a fully directional interchange at the Raceway, and then we made modifications to the Marsh Webb Chapel Bridge area and Lemon in the northeast. So the thing that jumps out obviously right away is all the reduction in congestion that you see by making that interchange fully functional. You see the trips that are now wanting to get to the airport on the north entry, they're using the freeway, which is what the freeway is designed for. So we're shifting thousands and thousands of daily trips off of the arterial infrastructure, and we're moving them over to the freeway where they belong. And you're also seeing improved traffic leaving on the northeast side on Marsh. I will point out just as a note that you do see right around Marsh and Webb Chapel, you do see one roadway north of Northwest Highway that looks really thick. Disregard that. We're not saying that little local road is going to do that. That's kind of a quirk in the model that we've addressed. So I don't want anyone to think that that's thousands of trips going through a neighborhood. We've removed that from the run. That wasn't the movement that we think is going to happen. But
so Chris, let me just add though. Remember, when we're doing computer simulations, it's a lot easier to do computer simulations than build things in the real world and see if they make sense or not.
Correct.
I want to give Jeff credit. Jeff is trying to deal with the northeast intersection. So he theoretically put in a thoroughfare street over Webb Chapel to try to balance the load at that particular location. I think that ends up being a good idea. So, we're going to take that little serpentine S out. I want to explore Webb Chapel Bridge across Bachman Lake that's actually on the east side of the major Marsh intersection instead of on the west side. Would it be better to truncate Webb Chapel into Northwest Highway and actually move the bridge to the other side? So the point is, we're toggling these in computer simulations. The major takeaway here is, look at the importance of this new interchange on Simmons. We're not done yet. We're still building this story for you. Look at the cost to Northwest Highway of not having a fully directional interchange at Raceway. This interchange is very helpful. Try to reduce the magnitude of this freeway type traffic being forced to exit at Northwest Highway. So remember, yellow is lower volumes. Look at Harry Hines, Webb Chapel Extension, Northwest Highway. We're not done yet. But if in fact you can toggle a 4-lane Shorecrest with a four-lane Shorecrest with a new interchange at Stemmons with a 4-lane Northwest Highway, we're not asking you to agree with us. We're just trying to point an analytical story. So that serpentine thoroughfare street, probably not a very good idea. Look at the size of that blue. We're not going to pursue that. Pursuing an interchange, we don't know what your opinion is. We think pursuing an interchange on Stemmons and providing better regional connections, taking the load off of your neighborhoods north of the lake, seems to be an idea. that should be explored. Now, remember, we haven't talked to TxDOT yet, but it is our responsibility in federal law to plan for the freeway system over time. So it is not, TxDOT is not going to be shocked that we bring them recommendations to the interstate highway system. Okay, Chris, go ahead.
Thank you, Michael. And just to reiterate what Michael said, that's the trial and error of what we're doing. And so I wanted to call these things out as we go along, we tweak what we're doing. Before we go to the next slide, focus your eyes on the Northwest Highway, Story Lane, Harry Hines, Spaghetti Interchange, because the next run we did, the final run we did, focuses on reconfiguring that interchange, and then also reducing the lanes on Northwest Highway to 4 lanes between Webb Chapel Extension and Webb Chapel Bridge. So knowing that, focus on that area. So the impacts between these 2 runs, again, building on themselves, we are still increasing the traffic coming in on 35 using the new Raceway interchange and cutting over Shorecrest to get into the airport. You're seeing a reduction along Northwest Highway. We flagged just north of Bachman Lake at 38,000 compared to the 50,000 plus that Jeff mentioned earlier. So we're looking at 25, 30%. And even that number is misleading because the larger reduction is actually west of there. The larger reduction is where the Spaghetti Interchange has been redesigned and the section between Harry Hines and Webb Chapel Extension. But you're seeing a very healthy reduction on Northwest Highway when you put all these pieces on top of each other. So that, especially, I'm not going to ask Travis to go back to the first slide, but definitely when you compare to the first slide, how scattered it was, where the trips were going. Now we've come up with a very streamlined system that not only impacts how traffic is getting in and out of the airport, but all the movements in the area. And so if you go to the next slide, please.
Well, before you do, Chris, I want to go back to the first time we met all of you. We said, well, you're not having economic development on Northwest Highway in your northwest corner because you're sitting on, we didn't have the term spaghetti interchange at the time. You're sitting on freeway ramp configuration. So what Jeff is proposing is to eliminate all those ramps back to a traditional thoroughfare street design. You have access off the curb. You don't have all these ramps you have to worry about. By taking out all those regional connections and forcing Northwest Highway to not be the receiver of these, and again, putting in the other interchange, you see at least the hope, I hope you see the hope, the reduced volume on Harry Hines, Northwest Highway east of Stemmons, a 4-lane section between Webb Chapel and the east. We may actually be able to explore extending the 4-lane section further to the west. When we first came up with Webb Chapel extension over to Webb Chapel, we were still sitting on the Spaghetti interchange. And now that we see how much we're able to reduce Northwest Highway, we can go back and look at those volumes as Chris just indicated. Look at the reduced volume is actually greater north and west of Webb Chapel extension. Is it possible we can get a 4-lane section over to Harry Hines? We didn't want to wait any longer in bringing you these particular ideas, but we think we're onto something with regard to elimination of the Spaghetti interchange, a new 4-directional interchange, the ability of integrating the pedestrian connections into that, as Jeff indicated. I think some of you may not be happy, but a 4-lane Shorecrest is something you guys need to noodle around. We do see the increased volume on Harry Hines, so we're still trying to determine how best to try to deal with that particular item. We have not fully designed Marsh Northwest Highway intersections. Again, we didn't want to wait doing it until we got some feedback on this particular concept. I think there is benefit of having 50% post-right amendment, you're seeing a lot of interest in people actually coming in to your airport and not being forced to go all the way around. So just go back to that previous slide if you could. Just remember, the yellow is a reduction in traffic and the blue is an increase in traffic. And I think we have some items very regional in nature to try to reduce this regional traffic on your neighborhood facilities. So Chris, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, next slide, final slide for this item is just to summarize the scenario findings that we've laid out, some general findings. The airport entry via Shorecrest Drive, as you saw in the maps, attracts between 18,000, 19,000 daily trips. It doesn't fluctuate very much, even once we start adding larger improvements. Widening Shorecrest Drive to 4 lanes does provide additional capacity parallel and adjacent to Northwest Highway, as we've shown, irregardless of the trips into the airport. It also impacts and aids other facilities parallel to it, such as Northwest Highway. When you modify the 35E interchange at Raceway and Harry Hines, that reduces congestion on Northwest Highway, Webb Chapel, and sections of Harry Hines. Then the interchange improvements at Northwest Highway, Harry Hines, and Spur 482 along with the Northwest Highway lane reduction provides significant congestion relief area-wide, in addition to all the levels that preceded it. So with that, I'll pass it back to Travis.
Thank you, Chris. And I want to remind everybody, this slide will be posted online. So if you want to go toggle between those model output maps yourself, that will be a possibility. And while you're doing that, I invite you to put a comment on our comment form for this meeting so that we can keep this conversation going digitally even after this evening. And we ask that you look at this presentation and comment by the end of the month so that we can move forward with figuring out next steps. That'll be available at our website, nctcog.org/Bachman area. And where we're going next with this project, we're here in August, it's the 5th. We're going to continue to refine these recommendations. We're going to coordinate with our local government partners, the City of Dallas, Dallas County, TxDOT, DART, and figure out a path forward with your input. We will be coming back to you to share content on recommended improvements as we go forward. And we hope to wrap this up by the end of 2021 if everything goes well. So again, we thank you for your engagement in this process. And we want to take some time now we've got a few minutes before our hour is up to address comments. And again, if you don't want to type it in now, need some more time to think, we've pasted a link to that comment form in the chat, so please use that. And yes, we will keep track of the comments entered in this chat in our log of engagement. So I'm gonna start off with the first questions we received up here related to really putting more traffic on Shorecrest. We've got comments from Susanna and Will generally noting that putting more traffic on Shorecrest may not be consistent with the park that is there. Noting that Shorecrest provides access to Bachman Lake, and do we want to really move traffic from Northwest Highway onto Shorecrest? And I know we covered the importance of Shorecrest in some of our presentation content. Jeff or Chris, do you guys want to talk about why, again, sort of why y'all focus on that Shorecrest?
So Shorecrest really, in absence of any other route to the north, and particularly because we didn't want to provide any kind of direct access to Northwest Highway that would involve another crossing of the lake. So you're really left with the ability to be able to get there on some through a bookend, as I had mentioned before, something from the northwest, something from the northeast, and really where they all converge is there on Shorecrest. And I certainly don't want people to get the impression that that we wouldn't address the fact that by widening Shorecrest that we would not be paying attention to how bicyclists and pedestrians would access that part of the lake. The idea is we're balancing out the overall traffic in that area. We reduce Northwest Highway on the north side to facilitate better safety, bicycle pedestrians there, but we could do the same thing with a 4-lane Shorecrest on the south side of the lake as well. It's just that Shorecrest provides that ability to be able to get from the bookends, northwest and northeast, to the center, so that then there's the ability to be able to get into the airfield and over to the terminals from some point there. And that was really the reason why we focused on Shorecrest, to be able to do that.
All right, our next question that again, I think our roadways team can help answer here is what % of traffic that's on Northwest Highway is going to Love Field, and would moving Love Field traffic off of Northwest Highway have an impact on the traffic levels on Northwest Highway?
Oh, Michael, you're muted.
Yeah, obviously in this particular plan, back to the book notion, we're trying to make sure there's no one on Northwest Highway. Obviously, there's no one on Northwest Highway north of Bachman Lake that's going to Love Field, right? By definition, why would you travel all the way across west to east to access northwest, access, say at Webb Chapel, and then turn around and head west again to enter the airport? We think if there is going to be an entrance to the airport, it should not be to Northwest Highway. It needs to stop at Shorecrest. So what we're trying to do is, if there is an entrance to the airport, there, and we can bookend the improvements. We still have some work to do at the northeast intersection. We don't have a real solution there. We think the western interchange has merit. We think getting rid of the spaghetti has merit. You're basically creating more of what I would call a gridded thoroughfare system. So instead of having Northwest Highway as a junior freeway and little else, you're reestablishing the grid of the thoroughfare street system and balancing the traffic across multiple facilities. And you really don't have that because of the floodplain, because of the lake, because of, probably historic lack of focus in your neighborhood. Maybe at some point 70 years ago, Northwest Highway was going to be a freeway. Remember, Northwest Highway distance-wise from downtown is exactly where 820 is in Fort Worth. So the 820 freeway is exactly at the location of Northwest Highway in Dallas. So the spacing for Northwest Highway from a freeway standpoint is the perfect place for there to be a freeway. What we're trying to do is to make sure that we're trying to reverse that thinking by reestablishing your grid, modernizing the Stemmons interchange, and balancing that traffic and forcing this traffic. Some of this traffic is actually going back up to LBJ where it belongs when you look at where the simulations are going. Now, we're not done yet. We're presenting these concepts to you. It's a little unfair to you to see such major change. I would think some of you saying, well, gosh, we never thought of that, or we never thought of that, or we never thought of that, or we hate this, or we hate this. It's going to take time to digest the layering that we've gone through, and the layering we still have to go through in order to try to balance this particular traffic. But if we can extend the 4-lane section west, and Jeff introduced this section we're already looking at east on Inwood, maybe there's additional things that we can do, but we are trying to balance lots of interest all at the same time. I think it meets the spirit of what we said we would do 10 months ago when we said we're willing to tear down silos and see where it takes us. Travis, you have another question? Or can you aggregate some of the questions so people hear responses from us?
Michael,
Michael.
yes.
Michael, this is Susanna. Before we jump into that, thank you. First of all, thank you to you and your team. This has been a fantastic presentation, very thoughtfully put together. And we absolutely appreciate what the North Texas Council of Governments is doing in terms of tearing down the silos that you mentioned. I do think, however, that going back to the meeting from 10 months ago, I think another really important message that you gave us was that you wanted to focus on community first and make sure that the solutions that were brought forward had that sense of community. Hence why I appreciate the concept of the land bridge and the concept of the island in the lake. However, it should not take away whatever the solutions are that we get developed, because I think the whole purpose of this meeting is for your team to get feedback from the community, from just the ultimate opposition that the community has had to a north entrance that would impact Shorecrest Drive along the lake. We never have received an explanation, treating us as intelligent beings, if you will, as to why option 6, as was listed on page 31 of the presentation, where there was an entrance from Love Field crossing Denton Drive to Burbank and Regal Row, would not be able to create that offset that you're talking on Northwest Highway by directing the traffic to I-35 in that manner. So as we discuss this north entrance of Shorecrest, I feel like, at least for myself and for many members of the community that are engaged in this, there are still a lot of questions as to why that option, as well as simply Mockingbird, having an alternate entrance off of Mockingbird, is not also addressed. There's a lot of traffic improvements that can be done on Mockingbird that may address this issue without this massive infrastructure change on Shorecrest itself. So thank you so much. I'm going to go on mute and look forward to hearing some more responses.
So two things. One, I think you are absolutely correct. So as you developing these layering strategies, Chris can send you, or Chris will develop what, Chris, go back to the original, before we started, you were doing simulations for the city. So go back to your original chart if Travis can get us back there. I want to support Suzanne's point. Go back to the original one with the 4 entrances. So when we got involved after Chris is working on this, we owe you what is the volume coming from number 5, the volume from 2, the volume from 1, the volume from 6. I probably would have never had a 1. I think that's a horrible idea. But we'll go ahead and show those to you. And what you're asking is a very fair question. So why we settled in on 2 is because of the results of the work we did previous to widening Shorecrest, putting in an interchange, and so on and so forth. So your question's a fair one. Now that you think you understand the efficient regional connections, would you mind going back and re-looking at these particular locations? And I think the answer, the question is, it's very insightful on your part. And yes, we need to go back. We need to show you the results of 1, 2, 5, and 6. And we need to go back and re-examine those particular items, given the question that you asked. So I think that's a very fair comment.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
The work we did simply said, in the real world, if you're ever going to build an entrance, it's going to be a 2 or it's not going to happen at all. And those results will confirm that based on the volume and based on the cost of what it would take to make those particular connections. So that is owed to you, and we will go back and re-examine them with those particular improvements.
Yes, because I think that if you do 6 or you look at 6, that is more at an angle. Yes, granted it's tunneling, but so is 2, and the tunneling on 6 is shorter than 2. And in addition to that, from a cost perspective, I'm thinking as a taxpayer, Regal Roll already has the on and off ramps to I-35 that, although I would love to get all the benefits that you're talking about regarding connectivity over to the Campion Trail, I have to think also as the cost overall to the city and to the county for a project like this. So I would appreciate if you guys could take a look at 6 and just give us a better idea.
I already agreed to it. We don't need to go over it again, right?
Thank you so much.
So when you keep reiterating it, it's almost like you're trying to convince other people that are listening to you of a particular position. And neither of us are trying to do that today. We're simply trying to show you our particular results. We're not trying to debate the issues today. We're just trying to share those results with you. And I already agreed that we will go back and resimulate that. The other comment I want to respond to, and I want to go back to your original blue and yellow map, is community. The point I'm trying to make is you are not the only community. So here are other Dallas communities. So when someone sees this blue and yellow map, it's possible there's other homeowners association or communities that think a reduction in traffic on Mockingbird may be a good idea, or on Denton Drive may be a good idea, or on Bluebonnet may be a good idea. So I don't want to be accused of not being associated with sensitive to community, because I think we're showing you an awful lot of options where we're being sensitive to community, that as we go take this to TxDOT, I don't think they're necessarily going to be as excited as we are or you are on some of these particular options, is my guess. But you're not the only community. And one of the things we have to think through is if 50% of the people in the real world don't want to travel all the way around and come in the southern entrance in a post-Wright Amendment Love Field, which moved you from a business airport to one of multiple destinations with more families traveling to New York and Los Angeles and a whole bunch of other things. And we did the pre and post Love Field, pre and post travel survey at Love Field. You are getting lots of people wishing to travel on Southwest Airlines that are coming in on the northern side of the airport. So yes, I think there's lots of improvements that can be made to Mockingbird, but I'm not asking you to accept this, but 50% of the people have no interest in traveling all the way around the airport whenever they want to go to the airport. So we have to think that through. I'm not asking you to necessarily think it's great, but there may be other communities in Dallas may think it's great. So we'll schedule those homework assignments. And in the meantime, Chris, you can go send out or get with Travis and post on the webpage the volumes from your original simulations that would not have a widened shore crest, not a new interchange, so on and so forth. And then as requested, we'll go back and resimulate those. All 4 of those entrances you simulated previously, and see what it says. What is the implication? Okay, Travis, what else you got?
We have another question about why not add DART access directly to the airport as part of another entry. I know that was covered as part of the airport's engagement process. And I'm pretty sure none of our alternatives preclude the ability to add some sort of transit going to the second entry.
Well, I can answer that directly. When light rail was built, our office and the city wished to have DART have a station underneath the new terminal. And our vision at significant cost to the Regional Transportation Council was to put the light rail station underneath and have direct access. That was not possible during DART and FTA's review of that particular option. So the light rail line is where it is, to our disappointment. And then the RTC recently has funded direct autonomous electric vehicles from the southern light station directly into the southern entrance of the airport. I do not think in the real world You can now go back and tunnel a new station directly into the Love Field terminal. We'll cover that in the section called DART. We'll explore that more in that section. But I am more disappointed than anyone that we do not have a light rail station in the basement of the new terminal.
All right, we have another question asking, has the analysis being done on Northwest Highway in the Inwood to Preston section, which is the TxDOT study to the east, been updated to reflect possible impacts of Love Field traffic to the tollway? So I think the question here is, have we sort of updated?
No, we have not talked to TxDOT on any of these findings until coming here. So where did we end up? Go to the last iteration. So you see we're not adding traffic on Northwest Highway East into that section east of Inwood. We still are seeing the traffic coming down Marsh Lane. We are asking questions about that. Jeff and I are working on why aren't we getting more of that orientation from the Dallas North Toll Road. So we're still examining that, but no, we have not sent these traffic numbers over. But east of Marsh, you're not seeing very much yellow. So we're not influencing a lot on Northwest Highway east of there. Now, back to toggling, if we go to a 4-lane section over on that particular section, then we may be requesting TxDOT to extend their Inwood all the way across. So we will know soon. We'll meet with TxDOT pretty soon and see if they're warm to the solution of a 4-lane Northwest Highway and get rid of the spaghetti and a new interchange. We'll be meeting with them in the next 30 days and see what their reaction is. But we have not systematically toggled these results yet with the other results that Jeff talked about in the beginning. Next question.
Right. Question here on modeling. Are the Shorecrest entry models assuming that traffic from the north comes down Marsh from 635 instead of from the Dallas North Tollway and exiting at Mockingbird and Northwest Highway?
We're not making any assumptions. The triple model just sends them there. We're not telling them where to go. So you're seeing people, for whatever reason, either, maybe what we'll do is we'll probably take the toll off of the toll road in a simulation and see if it's because they'd rather not pay the toll on the toll road or not, and see if in fact it's the toll that's creating the Marsh movement. But we owe you an answer on the Marsh movement versus why aren't we seeing a lot of blue coming down on the Dallas North Toll Road side? Similar, see this blue you see on the west side? Why aren't we seeing a lot more of that on the east side? We owe you an answer to that. I think that's specifically the question asked. And we haven't had time to fully explore why is Marsh so well when maybe it would be a lot faster to just simply get on the Dallas North Toll Road. But we'll probably take the toll off and see if it's due to the introduction of the toll. Not that we can take the toll off in the real world, but we can do a sensitivity test to answer the question. What's the next question, Travis?
Okay, so can we not do the Raceway improvement at Harry Hines without an airport entrance on Shorecrest and instead bring the traffic out of the airport through Burbank and Regal? And this is that number 6 entry that we talked about. But it was, I think they're asking, or Suzanne was asking.
Yeah, the answer is all of the above are totally interchangeable. We're not making any connections today on any of these particular items. I'm not saying we wouldn't be willing to help on something if you're not willing to help on something else. So everything is still on the table.
And another question specific to the model run. were there any model runs that did not include the Webb Chapel Bridge over the lake? And that
Not yet, but we would explore that. So you see the S serpentine that Jeff tried. We don't think that's a good idea. It's overloading. Regardless of what you do on Shorecrest and regardless of what you do on the airport, we got a mess on Northwest Highway at these two locations. So the most recent idea we had is to maybe move the bridge on the east side of Marsh. So no, we haven't done any more simulations on that. It's a horribly complicated item. But one of the items is, could you bring don't connect Shorecrest to Northwest Highway at Webb Chapel. Could you bring Shorecrest underneath Marsh? Don't connect it at Marsh and bring it up to Northwest Highway. And then if you want to go to the airport, you're going to come through the intersection of Northwest Highway and try to provide some better levels of service. So all of the above has not been resolved yet at that particular location.
And Michael, if I may, and I think Travis, this is in a way connected to a later comment that talked about on this model run specifically, how Webb Chapel flowing into Lombardy resulted in higher volume. Well, that is a consequence of connecting Shorecrest to Webb Chapel. And as Michael had just suggested, if perhaps we look at connecting something to maybe something east of Marsh Lemon, that by not having that direct link where Webb Chapel is concerned, maybe that traffic increase you're seeing in this simulation on Lombardy, maybe that traffic won't materialize. So I think
we think we might be able to get rid of the blue traffic by potentially looking at an east side structure.
Right.
I'm thinking, I could be wrong, I can't speak for the lake people. Would an east side structure be looked at as a more positive thing, so you don't see the Webb Chapel structure when you're on the lake? If you put it on the other side, is that looked at as a positive or negative thing? But we may want to tee, if in fact you're going to create Shorecrest, you may want to tee Shorecrest in the Northwest Highway on the east side without a connection to Marsh, to support Jeff's point, where you're not forcing any through traffic to occur. It's all going to occur on Northwest Highway, east of our 4-lane section. What's the next question, Travis?
I want to highlight a quick clarification that Tim asked. We mentioned an improvement east of Marsh and Lemon. Where would that go?
We're pulling the aerial photographs. We're seeing what it looks like. We're looking at maybe, we don't want to affect any residential areas. So that's, again, we didn't want to delay and then we take you into September. We'd rather come and share our results to date, even though we still have homework to do. So we had a more complicated, 10-minute item at this northeast intersection. And my suggestion to Jeff was to simplify it until we knew more, then carry you through a lot of those details until we can eliminate as many fatal flaws as possible. So we got some homework to do there. We think the interchange is pretty straightforward, the 4-directional interchange. Tearing down the spaghetti is complicated, but not horribly complicated. This set of intersections on Northwest Highway is very, very complicated, even if there was no love field here. It is a complicated problem, but we didn't want to delay getting to you, so we left that as homework to be determined.
Okay, we've got quite a few comments. I just want to remind everyone we're going to document these all. I have 2 more direct questions. Do we have time to hang on for 2 more questions? I'll just go ahead. One question is asking, is there really significant congestion at the existing entrance to the airport? And do we really need to have the second one?
Well, there's a long history of Bird having deficiencies. That's why there's 3 major improvements being reviewed. So, I mean, I guess you'd have to talk more to the city, but I've been hearing about a congested Mockingbird into Love Field for 20 years. I think that's why the city is looking at the improvements on Mockingbird. I've been hearing about the too much traffic and congestion on the east side of Love Field. Not hearing about it very much in the on the Denton Drive side, but lots of complaints of the neighborhoods on the west side with regard to traffic on Denton Drive. But you're seeing the yellow routes. If there was a northern entrance, the yellow routes are the roadways that people would not be traveling on in order to get into the airport. So by definition, the computer is sending them another way, a faster way, if in fact there was a northern entrance. And it's largely a result of how many people now wish to go to Love Field that are north of Love Field and no longer business travelers that are coming out of downtown. Travis, what's the next question?
I'm going to go with our final question, Michael, which is if we narrow Northwest Highway down to 4 lanes, what are we going to do with that extra space? How do we maximize that space? Sidewalks, additional transit, thoughts there? I know from our side, we identified there needs to be sidewalks there at least. And I know Dart.
Yeah, we probably didn't do, we just probably had the audience assume the reason to go to 4 lanes is not only to reduce the traffic, but turn the remaining right of way back over to the pedestrian. So this is the walkable, how many ever wide sidewalk Carla and Travis can get for us. This is to plant trees, create context sensitive design. How do you put the pedestrians on both sides? You put, bike on one side, pedestrian on the other. We haven't designed that. We have to take this idea to TxDOT, the tunnel or the cap that Jeff is talking about. You probably put the cars in the tunnel and you put the pedestrians coming up top, so they can access the park. So you create this ribbon of pedestrian activity, especially on the north side of Northwest Highway, more so important to me than the south side. Collect all these humans north of Northwest Highway that now are risking their life to cross Northwest Highway based on our own observation and the data that was received. You can now funnel them across by building a continuous bicycle facility / sidewalks and take them across this pedestrian cap that Jeff is describing back into this beautiful Bachman side improvement. And then Jeff is identifying all these new park plans that are being planned on the north side. And then Travis will now go back and now that Travis has been waiting on the roadway connections, to now go back and make the regional bicycle network connection. So now Travis can go back now and say, okay, how do I connect all this to the regional network? Is any regional network connections going to come across Jeff's new pedestrian cap? Or are they going to come, through other facilities that have to take them? But the answer to the question is we probably haven't, it's probably not a bus lane. I don't think it's a transit thing. I really think it's turned back over to the humans. And that goes back to my original comment 10 months ago. In a post-COVID-19 world, can we make Northwest Highway, instead of it being 10% for the neighborhood and 90% throughput, can we turn Northwest Highway into 40% throughput and 60% for the neighborhood? That's what we're trying to do here, to reshape the community level effort. But it would be trees, sidewalks, brick pavers, lighting, and then would have to, I don't think we're dragging them through the tunnel. So would have to, get them up to grade at ADA compliant levels and bring them through on the north side of Jeff's pedestrian cap. But we have to first hear, are people interested in this or not? And then we have to see what TxDOT's interest is or not. We're not moving forward until we get consensus on what are the things that not only this community is interested in, but what are the communities of Dallas interested in us doing? Any other questions of importance, Travis?
No, sir. We've cleared through all the direct questions. We do have a lot of helpful comments in the chat, which we'll remind everyone we're going to keep and document those as well. And if you have more comments that you need to think about a little bit more, I've got our webpage up here. Feel free to go there, log those comments. I've also got the contact information for myself and Chris and Jeff, who you saw present today. And so if you need to reach out to us, you can do that. Thank you everyone for hanging on to follow up on
But
these.
Travis, I would ask you if you, when you
Yep.
capture all the comments, I couldn't keep up with them during the presentation. Make sure you send all those comments to our staff and send them to all the people that got on today. So they have not only them on whatever the website is, send them, people like this, people hate this question. Send that all to the people who took time to be with us today. So they have them all in one place. And in addition, if you wouldn't mind putting them wherever you put them on our information page.
Yeah, we'll make them available and email to registrants.
Because I'd like to go through that and have the benefit of people's initial reactions.
Thank you, Michael, and your great team for this wonderful presentation. This is Tim Dickey.
You're welcome, sir. We appreciate the opportunity to see what we can do to turn this part of the world around. Any other comments today? All right. You're our boss here. We